set, the CFO leading. And we will have a fourth panelist and the moderator, Mr. Yi Chung Sek, partner of Baker McKenzie Vietnam. Our panelists are Mr. Tim Evans, Mr. Sarah Martin by Zoom, Mr. Andy Lian, intergovernmental blockchain expert by Zoom, and Mr. Hiroaki Endo, senior research fellow from Japan Association for CFO by Zoom. And now please welcome to the stage Mr. Tim and Mr. Yi Chung Sek.
Hello, testing. Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chung, a partner with Baker McKenzie, and I'll be the moderator for panel one today. We just had really excellent presentations from Tim and Sheriff. Tim touching on, the bright spot that Vietnam is, the resilience, the vision, and from Sheriff, a call to arms to CFO, C-suites, and businesses in general as you look beyond 2022 and literally the planet that we live on. But before I start the panel proper, I'm delighted that we're also joined via Zoom. We have Andy as well as Endo-san. So I do believe that Andy, I hope you're on. I think you're going to give us a bit of a 10-minute address, and then after that, Endo-san will speak next. So with this, I hand over to Andy first. I do believe you have 10 minutes.
Sure. Thank you so much. I hope everyone can hear me now.
Loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you. Greetings from Singapore, and hope everyone is fine. I'm Andy, chairman of a Big One Exchange. We are top 40 globally. So today my topic is a bit maybe not so CFO-like for now. I'm talking about something regarding cryptocurrency and DeFi, which means decentralized finance. So give a very brief definition of decentralized finance. So it's an umbrella term for financial services on public blockchain. Right now it's on almost all kinds of blockchain, from Binance to Ethereum, all those that you can imagine. So with DeFi, you can do most of the things that banks support, like earn an interest, borrow land, buy insurance, trade derivatives, trade assets, and a lot more, But it is a lot faster and does not require a lot of paperwork, or a third party. So as with crypto in general, DeFi is global, it's a peer-to-peer transaction manner, and does not directly, deal with any centralized system. So many would ask, what would DeFi do, in this current market? We have a lot of bankers here and so forth. My personal take is, it is set to change how the traditional finance is going to be like. First of all, DeFi has the potential to transform the traditional banking sector into a more decentralized model for serving clients. Just example, before the introduction of DeFi, yield farming, is a practice of staking and lending of a crypto asset in order to generate high return, was available in traditional finance to institutions wishing to lend money to individual and businesses. And JP Morgan, which was very adverse to cryptocurrency in the beginning, is currently bullish on the staking business, which generates 9 billion in annual revenue and could be worth more than 20 billion when Ethereum 2.0 launches next year, 2022. And could be looking at 40 billion, by 2025, according to the analysts. So making financial processes, such as yield farming to retail consumer, and by implication to the world 1.7 billion unbanked through decentralization, it has the potential to deliver the financial opportunities enjoyed by the elite to the majority of people. Of the 1.7 billion unbanked people, around the world today, around 290 million are in Southeast Asia. So with the blockchain technology, we hope to create a trustless alternative to the traditional financial system, and DeFi is set to enable automated smart contracts that can be used in different sectors like insurance and real estate. Giving some statistics again, in 2018, a report by Gartner estimated that by 2030, 80% of the heritage financial firms will go out of business, become commoditized, or exist only formally. Financial services CIOs should push their organizations for a more quicker response to the digital business. And this was written in the response to the impact of fintech to non-traditional players such as Alibaba and Metro Bank before the rise of DeFi. But despite the hype around DeFi, it is likely the future financial system will be on a hybrid mode, connecting DeFi with traditional banks. In this scenario, central banks, clearing houses, regulators, and overseers of the economy would have vital role to play in the digitalized and decentralized finance system. It is also worth noting in this context the rise of CBDC, central bank digital currencies. While the Chinese CBDC, the digital yuan, was born as China's answers to Facebook Libra back then, the recent ban of Bitcoin and advancement of the digital yuan by the People Bank of China shows the rise of DeFi is by no means guaranteed in its decentralized form. So at the end of this spectrum, taking advantage of the opportunity that DeFi brings, it was again, reported that trillions of dollars could flood into the decentralized market. That's provided, the world's 100 biggest bank, like HSBC, for example, even invested or tried to experiment into the DeFi market, according to a blockchain research firm, Block Data. So whatever traditional finance has, there's always a parallel version in DeFi. Credit lending, trading, derivative, asset management, insurance, and so on, as mentioned. We do strongly believe that DeFi and centralized finance would find a way to integrate with each other in this period of time. And I really hope that when we look at DeFi, we could help to look at how DeFi can help the unbanked, and how DeFi could help some of the CFOs, in the space to really understand how cryptocurrency is going to change some of the things that we are going to do right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you very much, Andy. One thing I'm really enjoying about this panel is that the topics are really diverse. Just on a small logistical point, especially for those of you on Zoom, there is a Q&A function. So if you have questions, please put your questions into the Q&A function, because I will be looking at it. Okay. Now let's turn over to Endo-san. He's going to talk about, the Japanese perspective of investments into Vietnam. As some of you would have probably read, I think there was a very successful meeting between Vietnam's Prime Minister and Japan's Prime Minister recently. MOUs were signed or the indications of, strong Japanese investments into Vietnam across a range of sectors. So with that, I'll hand over to Ando-san to give us his 10-minute introduction. Thanks.
Thank you very much for a very kind introduction. Can you hear me well? Okay. Thank you. My name is Hiroki Endo, representing Japan Association for CFOs. Before going into my presentation or discussion, I just wanted to share with you that we have a very strong and long relationship with Vietnam CFO. And then I'm very honored and delighted to be here to be speaking to all of you. And then it's a shame that a COVID situation put me in a seat in Tokyo talking to you via Zoom, but I was there in Ho Chi Minh City in 2019 and 17, which is very fond memory for me. And I'll be very happy to be back then there again to see you in person. So as it is introduced, we really had a very good discussion with between our prime ministers, which is very encouraging. And then I'm very excited about what we have in future. So I think you have read a lot already in the press, so I don't intend to repeat those, but just wanted to share what Japanese people are thinking, since we are talking to a lot of CFOs and CEOs in Japan, and then what they have in mind. Not necessarily having answers to you all, but just wanted to share what's keeping Japanese CFO up at night. This is not too different from what everyone else have in mind, but just wanted to share. The first is a new growth strategy and the role of CFO. That's what they are wondering as of now. So MITI, which is Japanese Ministry of Economy, Trade, Industries, but their initiative is to inviting to making a Tokyo renewed financial center or revitalize Japanese economy by bringing in money and the investment into Japan. But at the same time, they are encouraging the investment to outside world, including Vietnam. So just as our Prime Minister, Mr. Kishida, mentioned as well, we're very excited about increasing investment into Vietnam economy. And then already seen in the press, we have actually seen a very strong growth of investment into Vietnam. I can explain why these are happening. First, from the bottom of COVID crisis, the economy started coming back. And also in the process of recovery, the supply chain was very much disrupted. Some area is still being locked down or some areas still opened, but things are not moving as it was before. So it is a kind of redefining moment. So we can make investment into the region where things are better on track, or we have to shift from those areas which we were investing, but if things are not going well, we have to move to the better places. So that's redefining the investment destination. So that is a part of the answer why investment from Japan to Vietnam is growing, because you're in a better footing. And the second is another growth agenda for Japanese CFOs called venture CFOs. Even in Japan, which is old economy, but a lot of venture economy is growing. Venture companies are trying to come up with new business. So they come up with good technology or good service ideas, but as they try to grow, there are a lot of missing pieces, which includes CFO function. So if Steve Jobs or someone start business from their garage, they can just create something and bring to the market, but they tend to leave CFO function behind. They will think about fundraising afterwards, but it is very important function. So even in Japan, there are a lot of demand for good CFO for venture companies. which may be something you might want to look at even in a Vietnam context. And the next agenda is DX, or anything digital. So COVID forced everyone to work from home, or because of the lockdown. So everyone rushed to introduce a lot of remote work style, and then a lot of things moved from paper-based processing to cloud-based, such as accounting, invoicing, and expensing, and even introducing AIs, which is very easy to talk about. But for many corporations who has not been operating right like that, it is very difficult. So many Japanese corporations are still struggling to implement those, and then it can be actually easier for new startup companies because they don't have a legacy system. So these are the things they're still working hard. And right now, the hybrid work style is next agenda. Since the same as everywhere, Japan seeing relatively better handle on COVID infection cases. So now people are moving back to the office, and then still some work can be done from home. So people are wondering, is it like everyone has to go back to the office? Or many people understood the beauty of not having to commute to the office. So corporations are introducing hybrid work style, but still trying to figure out what is the best work practice. I don't know the situation in Vietnam, but these are certainly something you might want to discuss in your country. And the next is a big topic, which was already mentioned earlier, but ESG or SDGs, which is very important. But again, many Japanese companies are well behind, but recognizing this is a very important topic, and then working hard to find answer, which we don't have answer yet. And the next thing is, I've touched upon globalization or supply chain disruption, but this is very interesting, exciting opportunity for someone like Vietnam, because you're actually taking shares from other regions who are not able to accommodate those demands from countries like Japan. And the blockchain, which is always being misunderstood as the same thing as Bitcoin, digital currency, which is of course important part of the blockchain effect. But at the same time, this is also can be also used in a trade finance, and then a lot of value chain. So this is still very much under investigation, but that's something the Japanese CFO are keeping very close eyes on. And lastly, the macroeconomy. Not lastly, but macroeconomy, interest rate and inflation, which was also touched upon. And then from Japanese perspective, it is very challenging to see the inflation. Yeah, we actually started seeing, input prices are in fact impacting output prices, which is consumers' prices rising gradually. But given that the Japanese demographic situation, which is very old and getting older, we really don't see a heated inflation, which is probably because wages, which is not really rising. The background reason is tied to the next item, which is work style for everyone. So many people just retired around 55 or 60 years old before, but Japan is now looking at 100 years old of lifespan. So what do you do if you retire at the 55 or 60? So people are expected to work longer. So these are giving pressure to the labor market, which is in the wage down. So these are kind of keeping read on inflation. That's one way of thinking. But in our view, current inflation could be short-lived or transitionary, and then longer-term interest rate might come down. So we will see over the next coming years. So these are the my prepared remarks, but we are happy to have any free discussion from now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Endo-san. Okay, so now we turn to the panel at large. Actually, I wanted to start from a global view and ask Sheriff to talk more and elaborate a bit more on his comments around, the 1.5 degree Celsius. But having said that, I'm also deferential to what I see on the Q&A box. And it seems that in terms of priority and sequence of questions, I think folks are following Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I'm going to ask that question that I do believe has been directed to Tim from Win Chung Hugh, which actually was one of the questions that I had in my mind as well. So he said, "Dear Tim, thanks for your sharing. Regarding food price increasing, is there any indicator they will drop down?" And maybe just to add on a bit of my own sort of sense around that, I think we all know that global inflation is really climbing. Last I checked, I thought that Vietnam was sort of holding steady. So just wondering whether there's a story around that from Vietnam versus global. And of course to Hugh's question. Tim?
Okay, thank you, Chung, and thank you for the question. So if I just start on the one on food prices, I just do caveat it, I'm not an economist, but the view that we have is that input prices are going up, commodity prices are going up, and transport prices are going up. And so all of those feed through into what's happening on food prices. The view at the moment is still that this is transitory. A lot of the reasons for this is it's hard to book shipping space, the ports are full because of backlogs of supply chain, the ability to get food or product to the end destination has been protracted or extended, and as a result of this, prices is going up. My personal view, and this is not an HSBC view, is that whilst there are elements of transitory inflation, I think that there are also elements of more permanent inflation. And so if you look at Vietnam, I think you're right, Chung, inflationary impact has been muted this year, but to a great extent, the economy has been impacted by a lack of consumption. We went through 3 or 4 months here in Ho Chi Minh where you literally couldn't buy anything, even groceries. So that has had a knock-on impact. And yes, there is an impact of supply chains not being able to keep up with demand. So, I have friends in the US complaining they can't buy the right size of shoes because Vietnam isn't selling them. But I do think it's slightly broader than that. Our house view for Vietnam is that inflation should be at around 3.5% for the Vietnamese economy next year, which is below the threshold set by the government of 4%. But if we see it get beyond 4%, and food prices will be an important aspect to that, then we could see a situation where we will see rate increases in Vietnam as well as in the US. So in summary, my view is transitory is probably 60 to 70% of the problem. 30% of it, in my own humble opinion, is more permanent, and we'll have to see as supply chains normalize, is there a need to start increasing interest rates to address inflationary pressure?
Thank you very much, Tim. And certainly, I think we all hope that supply chain pricing will normalize. I know it's been really rough for those that are moving their goods across borders. So at this point, I will ask Sheriff to speak next. But just a quick one to Andy first, just to tee you up. I think that's a broad question to you. Can you explain cryptocurrency? But before you do that, and I'd love to hear the answer too. But before you do that, so I'm going to turn it over to Sheriff. So I do know that you would like to elaborate on your incredibly meaningful remarks, on COP26, 1.5 degrees, etc. No net zero by 2030 or up to 2050. But before you get into that, maybe as a bit of a big picture point, and then it speaks to your slides as well. I think we all recognize that there are issues, there are certainly concerns, But from individuals, maybe to the SMEs, what can we really do? Can we make a difference? I suppose the MNCs, well-resourced that they are, certainly put time and energy into it. But this is global. We need everyone in the ecosystem to be aware, savvy, and taking action. So if you could just address some of those. Thanks.
Thanks, Chung. I mean, just from the list of questions, I might need 2 hours to answer all of that. But let me try and tick off a few of those things, right? I think firstly, you've asked a whole range of things which covers issues such as climate justice and the whole transition. But I just want to sort of follow through on the earlier question to Tim, which is about price increases. And it was about food, but let me just take that conversation broader. And I would say this, I think as CFOs, I think it's very nice that we all want to have a return to a positive narrative. That's really important for our psychological health. But I have to ask the CFOs that you need to start looking at plans where that narrative continues to be at risk. Just today we were talking about this whole COVID thing and we're getting back to normalcy. And today I read on BBC that there's a new variant which is far more deadly than the Delta variant called B.1.1.529. So when is this going to stop? I don't know. But if we keep thinking that way, then I think we're not going to prepare ourselves and the supply chain. So let me address some of those things that you talked about, Chung. And again, it's a very, very broad thing that you've asked. I'll try. Look, the reality is, firstly, and I want to make this message clear to the CFOs, understand what this 1.5 degrees is. It's not really just about, the world's going to get warmer by 1.5 degrees. Hey, it's already warm. Hey, within a day, we're already going more than 1.5 degrees already. So what's the big deal? It isn't about that. It is about the fact that if you look at the last 8,000 years of the world, we have stayed in the narrow band of 0.5 degrees, up or down. So our ecosystems have never been tested on a range outside of 1. And at 1.1, where we are today, we're already seeing all kinds of weird signs, right? And again, unfortunately, the media tends to associate climate change with extreme weather events. And I don't want to say this in any way which disrespects the people and the lives affected by extreme weather events. But I want CFOs to understand that your supply chain could get affected significantly as we start itching above 1.1 and until 1.5. There's a second thing which I hope CFOs will understand better than most, which is there is this notion of a remaining carbon budget. So we have released carbon emissions since the 1700s. The world can only take so much. And the scientists, the climate scientists have calculated that we have roughly, it's a rough science here, roughly about 400 gigatons left before we are not going to be able to contain a 1.5 world. Some of these effects, as you all know, is not reversible. For example, when you emit so much of carbon, it takes about 100, 150, 200 years before you can bring it down. It just doesn't go just because you all have seen in COVID that once, human activity stops, the rivers become cleaner, the trees become greener. It's not as simple as that. So I guess what I need to try and mention here, and then I'll move on to climate justice, is understand that your supply chain, you need to start talking to your suppliers. You need to see whether you need to speak to your suppliers and find out how are they already impacted today? How will they be impacted if things get worse? Then you need to start bringing that back into your strategy. Do the same thing with your customers, because this comes to your second point. What can I do? I'm so small, I'm an SME, I really don't have a lot on the plate. So a few things I need to mention. One, there is a notion of climate justice, which I'm totally for. Vietnam's Prime Minister in his speech at COP26 made this very clear. And again, I'm 100% behind this. which is the countries which have produced most of these emissions since the 1700s. They have to do more, and they have not. So when it's time for the developing world, that they need to start, progress, not for progress sake, but because their people are living in conditions which, frankly speaking, need to be improved. Some of them don't have electricity. Some of them do not have 3 square meals a day. Do not even talk about consuming power, right? These are the basic necessities. So there is an issue that leaders in these parts of the world need to be accountable to their people. And then for someone to say, well, press the brakes because this is going to cause carbon emissions, that isn't exactly fair. So in 1992, which is well before Paris Agreement in 2015, there was a notion of a common but differentiated responsibility. That has all been removed. And now in Paris Agreement, you're talking about everyone racing to 2050. That doesn't work in my view, Chung. We need to have advanced countries support this. Now, how much are they willing to support today? 100 billion. Not enough, because if you look at what we did in the global financial crisis, never mind, let's not even go there. Just look at the COVID crisis. The 4 major central banks pumped $9 trillion. Now, if you want to save that kind of situation, you now have to save the one ecosystem that supports economic wealth generation. What is that one ecosystem? That's the entire planet. And understand that there are at least 9 systems which interconnect. And once you affect one, it can break the other. So CFOs, I'm sorry, but you need to start understanding climate science today. There is no shortcut. And you need to grapple with it. You need to speak to experts. You need to get better at it. You will not be an expert. You do not need to be an expert. You want to be a technology expert, go and speak to Andy, right? But you just need to know things as a CFO to challenge and to make sure that you're getting credible information. I'll stop there, Chung, because I think I've said quite a bit, and I'll leave it to the rest to chime in.
No, thank you. It is a big topic, but I think really one of the key points that you're raising is that, we need to get off the back foot and put a lot of weight into our front foot, get front-footed. I think some ski instructors told me the same thing before. So I'm going to turn to Andy next. But before I do that, can I also tee up Endo-san? I do believe you have a question for you in the Q&A box. And in fact, actually, it ties in with what I was thinking as well of asking you, which is the whole work from home experience. So
Yes.
with that, I do turn to Andy, although if you just let me make one more remark. I think it's quite interesting when we talk about nature, resource, and mining. I know it can be another 2-hour debate when we talk about the benefits of crypto and the energy and resources that goes to digital mining. I don't think we have that 2 hours right now. Okay, but with that, let me turn over to Andy. And I think the question that we see ties in quite a lot with what many of us read. I mean, you read about blockchain, tokenization, NFTs. Okay, so right now, maybe it shows my age. It seems to be the domain of the the tech gods. Who are the current masters of the universe. But what does it mean, from that to being adopted, being applied, being used by day-to-day folks? As you yourself have pointed out, what you're trying to serve maybe is the underbanked, is the underserved. So maybe a bit, some comments from you on crypto, and a bit of a question from me. What would that journey look like?
I think the journey has just begun. So everything is fairly new right now. There are people who still think that Bitcoin is a scam. Sometimes when you talk to people, but I think the time will tell whether whether it's going to stay or not, right? But when you talk about there are a few topics that I always like to bring up. So first thing is tokenization. I think tokenization at large is not meant for any and every company. All right. we have friends who say that, hey, if IPO is very expensive, why not we do a STO, a security token? But to be honest, it is also expensive, and if you can't do well in the IPO stage, I don't think you are going to do well in the crypto space as well. You don't have 2050 to plan ahead. You probably have a window of 3 to 6 months and get things going. And if you can't get things going, out of the door straight away. So I think the environment is very harsh. It's not like most people think that, oh, it's very rosy, it's easy money. People can start a company very fast. Those are all not true, 100% not true. And then again, if you look at Vietnam, as a whole, Vietnam has a very strong user base for cryptocurrency. We have seen a lot of good games coming up from Vietnam, like Axie Infinity. It has close to 2 million active users, on a daily basis. But are these numbers good? I think they are not good enough. They will continue to grow. But we have to look at the cryptonomics behind this. During this period of time where COVID-19 has almost stopped most of the key activities, how are the people in general and those people who are willing to change going to earn some money? People in the gaming space, in the crypto gaming space, for example, on Axie, they play the game and they earn a decent living from it during this period of time. Of course, there are many other things. Is this going to be a life changer? I'm not sure. But at least during this period of time, they are able to survive. They have enough dollar and cents to keep them going, while staying at home, right? So this is a change cycle of economy, right? It is not something very new, to be honest. I think right in the past, when the internet era just started, there are a lot of such opportunities as well. But cryptocurrency as a whole, has gained a lot in the last 2 years because of COVID, right? And then in my earlier topic about DeFi, people think that, hey, DeFi is crazy, man, right? You can borrow anything against anything. That is also not true. Let's look at very practical things. Yeah, I invested in a company who is doing DeFi business. So you just imagine you are a student, you need $2,000 in loan. You go to the bank, they say sorry. You go to your mom and dad, they say sorry. They go to the DeFi platform and borrow that $2,000. And the beauty about this is that you can actually offset your loan, by doing some social work online, social media work online, or by conducting some causes, or finding big communities to support some of his initiative. Vietnam has tons of people, right? So this is a real example. Vietnamese student got the loan and managed to pay more than half during this period of time. And it is a win-win situation for everybody. And I'm not trying to put up a very good word about crypto, but of course I'm always doing that. But to a very practical extent, it does help a lot, for the people that are not doing very well, and it also help some businesses, especially the SME, to pivot away from their comfort zone, to look at things that are more on a global level. Don't create apps just for your small community. Create apps that can actually reach out to more people, a more bonded community, for example, in the crypto space. That's another whole new range of topics that we can talk about. But long story short, I still think that cryptocurrency is here to stay. Cryptocurrency is here to help some people for now, and I hope more people will benefit from it. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you very much. This panel deserves more time, but I'm mindful that we have another great panel coming up. So I'm going to ask, I think, the last questions. Oh, but just as a quick remark to Andy's points. Now, every now and then, Vietnam puts itself up on the digital map. Some may recall Flappy Bird. Remember that game? Yep, got a lot of attention. And now we have, Sky Mavis and Axie Infinity. I think one of the fastest growing tech unicorns in Asia. Really quite amazing story there. Okay, so this is going to be the sort of last round questions, but actually I do hope that Endo-san, you can answer that question first in the Q&A box. I think, well, at least key for me is what do you think is the experience going to be like from the work from home? Okay, so if you can talk a bit about that, and then I will also ask you to lead off on the last question, which is final remarks from the panelists as you look towards 2022. What do you see happening? And then perhaps most importantly, what the CFOs, CEOs, industry lead,
That's a very interesting mix.
Yeah. Okay, so I think there may be some technical problem, but assuming that everyone else can hear me, I would take up the question if that's okay. So the question about hybrid work style and then implement DX. So it's very much interrelated. So, and then also some part is not necessarily related. So when people have to work from home, in a very minor example, people were using seals on the papers in the past when they do contracts, but when they are at home, they cannot have access to those documents. So they have to implement DX so that they can process contracts or anything just electronically. So that's how the hybrid work style kind of force implementation DX. Oh, by the way, can everyone hear me still? Okay, looks like so. So that's a part of the reason. But even before COVID situation forced people to move to hybrid work, I think these were coming anyway because it is just convenient and that's the way forward. So COVID just accelerated the changes to implement DX. And the other example is accounting. So even moving from paper-based processing to even digital server-based accounting, it's even better to move toward the cloud, because if you are using server-based accounting system, you have to upgrade server, you have to maintain server, you have to keep your server from cyber attacks. So a lot of things you have to worry about if you just try to do on your own. But if you move toward cloud, then the host of the cloud can take care of upgrade of the system or cyber securities. So a lot of headaches can be moved away from the just users. You can just pay as you go. So cloud-based accounting is just again accelerated because of the implementation of DX and also because of the COVID situation. But this was just was beginning even before COVID started. So I think that these are combination of linkage or a push from hybrid work environment caused by COVID, but also digital technological innovation was happening even from before to make it happen. So this is how it happens. Also, the office leasing section definitely being impacted by this hybrid work style. We see some Japanese corporations moved their headquarters from urban place to suburban places because it is cheaper in terms of space costs. And also for some companies, being in the suburb is actually helpful for those workers if those workers are prefer to stay in the suburb to raise kids and have better environment and then bigger spaces. So that is happening. So office rent in the central city might have come down a little bit and then have moved to the suburb area. These are the impact. But the question is how long-lasting it can be. That the answer is still unknown. So we don't know if the office rent in the center of the city will continue to struggle, but that's a change we started seeing. So and then just as Mr. Chun mentioned, what do we see in going into 20? So before going there, I can better than naming the accounting firm right now from my mouth, which is Japanese related. So I'd rather not to do that, but I recommend you to contact Vietnam CFO Association who can help you to solve that. And also you can see names on the back of the panel. So so that's my answer to your question. And then what do we see going into 2020? I think that it's an accelerated recovery as we already started seeing. So the Japanese CFOs are wondering where to put money. And then from Japanese perspective, there can be a lot of places you can go, China, Vietnam, Korea. But fourth thing is cheap labor cost. And that was one key reason from before, but it is not just simple as that. With supply chain disrupted like this, we are more mindful of who to work with, which government is more stable, which countries are better equipped to contain those COVID situation. And lastly and foremost, the trust. We want to work with someone whom we can trust better. So trustworthiness is a keyword. So I'm very encouraged and excited by seeing the recent meeting between Prime Minister with Vietnam and Japan that we seems to have very good trust each other. So going into 2022, I'm very hopeful and excited for both economies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited for both countries as well. Okay, so Sheriff, last thoughts from you. Will digital save the world? Is it going to be a rush for cobalt mining? And apart from that, what do you see for 2022?
I need to look beyond 2022, Chung, because you know, a year just passes so quickly. It's not long enough in my perspective. I would tell CFOs in the audience today to say, learn from COVID, because when COVID came, we were completely caught by surprise, but we shouldn't have been, because the World Economic Forum has been flagging it as a top 5 risk for the last 5 years. This is taking away all those other stuff that you may have heard from the Bill Gates and etc. This is solid research and we ignored it. That said, companies which were stronger on the technology train were better able to adapt and to be more resilient in these particular times. My same argument to the CFOs is, if you start looking into the way climate change will impact your business value chain, your ability to decarbonize today and start getting on that journey, when it gets bad, and I'm afraid I think it will get in that way, when it gets that way, you'll be far more ready to start building resilience within your entire ecosystem, where you source material from, to whom you're going to sell it, how will you sell it, all of those things. At least, to use the same language that we talked about, you're on the front foot, you're not waiting on the back foot.
Thank you very much. Andy, over to you. We know the future is definitely digital, but what do you see for the coming year ahead?
I think the coming year ahead will be another challenging year, to be honest. Things will change, you know, whether it's digital or not digital. I think we are all in a real world, right? So I still hope to see that businesses can open up, the economy can grow a lot more naturally, you know. And last but not least, of course, coming back to the crypto agenda, I think 2022, like I've mentioned in my recent articles, you know, I think it will be a good year for adoption. And I'm very sure that Southeast Asia or ASEAN as a whole would definitely stands out, you know, in this whole global economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And certainly last but not least, Tim, final words from you.
Yeah, my view is that once we get past COVID, and I'm very hopeful that we don't have another variant that was referenced in the discussion earlier, the real burning platform is climate change. And if you and I were to do this in 2030 here in Ho Chi Minh, there's a good chance we'd be doing it in a scuba outfit, because Ho Chi Minh is one of the cities most susceptible to climate change. And according to the World Bank, Vietnam is top 5. So climate change doesn't start with the big companies doing big things. It starts with all of us doing many, many, many things. So as individuals, as companies, as investors, as regulators, as governments, we all have to get on board, because every little step makes a difference. We can't wait for one big bang thing to happen. So it's SMEs, MMEs, large corporates, state organizations all getting together, and the banking sector has a role to play in helping finance the innovation that will ensure that we have alternative sources of energy.
Thank you very much. Truly a collective effort. So with that, I'd like to thank my panel with a round of applause. Thank you. I've been told not to tap the mic, so I won't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please stay back, remain on stage. Yeah. Okay, thank you. All of our panelists, and thank you team, and thank you Mr. Chum again. And from our organizers, we have some flowers to give you for our sincerely thanks. And please welcome on the stage Mr. Nguyen Ho Thanh, Vice President of CFO Vietnam, and Mr. Lê Hồng Lĩnh, CEO of CFO Vietnam. They will deliver the flowers. Once again, thank you, Mr. Ando, Mr. Martin, and Mr. Andy.